Happy Independence Day, Connecticut. It's Johnny Flynn, and I'm running for U.S. Senate. But there's a guy I need to expose who is my congressman. If you know about Jim Himes and his proximity to Oxy, and his office is across the street from UBS, who purchased Dominion for Chinese nationals. His office is next to Bank America, which pulled off the largest financial coup in American history, as far as I know. But I'd like you, if you could bear with me on this holiday, just to hear me out. Watch a video. If you know that about Jim Himes, he had FBI oversight, NSA oversight, DHS oversight, and there are deals in the works that you need to hear about. I'm going to expose one of them right now. If you haven't looked at the Tweed Airport deal in New Haven, in actually East Haven, there's a problem with the Goldman Sachs CMO trader who was never prosecuted for what Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and AIG did. That's because Jim Himes is on the Finance Committee. Jim Himes is on the Transportation Committee. Here we go. Just bear with me. If you look at this, he's on transportation. Okay, we get it. But if you look at what is actually happening, I want to show a video. Here it is. Grin and bear it, folks. It's very important. It's hard to find this documentation.
On December 13th, 2017, I reported on Robert Mueller's connection to Project Pelican. Project Pelican is the name of a 35-year no-bid lease of a shipping and cargo container terminal at Florida's Port Canaveral, granted to Gulftainer, a United Arab Emirates conglomerate with direct ties to Iraq's former nuclear scientist, Dr. Jafar Dia Jafar. The deal went through under the Obama administration while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, and not long after the Abraj Capital Group, a United Arab Emirates-based private equity company, made a $550,000 donation to the Clinton Global Initiative, according to a WikiLeaks released email. Additionally, Secretary Clinton awarded the Abraj Capital Group the first of hundreds of millions of dollars in loans and investment management contracts through OPIC, the State Department's overseas private investment corporation. The Abraj Group was co-founded by Hamid Jafar, the business partner and brother of Dr. Jafar. Hamid Jafar's son, Badr, sits on the board of directors of the Abraj Capital Group. The Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States, CFIUS, failed to conduct a proper investigation on the deal before granting approval. I've provided a link to my December 2017 upload in the production notes for anybody that's interested in further details and the Robert Mueller-James Clapper connection to Project Pelican's approval. Now, let's take a look at what may be passing into the United States through Gulftainer's dock in Florida. Gulftainer and Russia's state-owned Rostec have a joint venture named the Club K system. This is the Club K container system. You see that? Okay, now here it is in action. Rostec owns 100% of the shares of Rosbaron Export. That's the exporter of the Club K system. Club K is referred to as a Trojan Horse because it can't be distinguished from a normal shipping container. To complicate matters, it can be activated via satellite. We have to assume that it's been sold to anyone with enough money to purchase one. Anyone. How many have been pre-positioned in the United States? That's unknown. It's important to note that the Obama administration refused a request from Congressman Duncan Hunter when he requested that the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States conduct a national security threat analysis of the Gulftainer port deal. Hunter obviously knew of the relationship between Gulftainer and Rostec. The container terminal is 1,000 feet from the United States Navy's strategic Trident submarine base. I'm not kidding. And within sight of NASA's Kennedy Space Center. The national security risks are off the charts. As if the Port Canaveral 35-year lease wasn't mind-boggling and troubling enough, listen to this recent development. The federal government has signed off on a proposal to allow Gulftainer to privatize the Port of Wilmington and develop a new container port at Edgemoor, Governor John Carney said Wednesday. The terms of the pending 50-year deal would see the state of Delaware continue to own the land under the nearly 100-year-old Wilmington port, while Gulftainer would take over operations of the facility, which sits at the confluence of the Christina and Delaware rivers. The federal sign-off means that the final terms must now be ratified by the Diamond State Port Corporation, the port's quasi-public operating board. In an astonishing statement that President Trump has no authority over national security as it relates to our ports, the News Journal of Wilmington wrote, earlier this week, Thomas Feddo, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Investment Security for the Department of Treasury, informed an attorney representing the state of Delaware that the Gulftainer Port of Wilmington deal isn't covered under the Defense Protection Act that gives the President authority to review certain transactions involving foreign entities. Recently, Admiral James Lyons had this to say, Gulftainer is now trying to obtain a similar lease on the port of Jacksonville in Florida, where previously they attempted to buy their way in with a $250 million investment. And Claire Lopez, a former operations officer with the CIA and 20-year veteran that currently sits on the board of directors for the Institute of World Affairs, recently gave a radio interview on the national security risks presented by the Gulftainer deals.
Well, let's stop right there. What do we need to know? We need to know that Congressman Himes was born in Peru. We need to know he's refused to prosecute OxyContin for knowingly making a drug that was much more potent than they described, much more addictive, and he took bribes. Okay, he gets an annual bribe from Bank America to cover up the computer shares Greenwich Global money laundering problem in Stamford, Connecticut, right next to his office. So when you look at people on the Finance Committee who are on transportation, and you look at the Gulftainer Corporation purchase of Cape Canaveral and now Delaware and now Jacksonville, they will have container ship ICBMs next to our Trident missile base within 1,000 yards. They will have the capability to launch ICBMs in Delaware, which sits very close to Washington, D.C. So what I didn't show you was the earlier part of that video, which is done by a fanatic, so I didn't want to share it. But it basically says that the country was extorted by a threat of a dirty bomb recently, okay, from one of these container ships, which caused Trump to do a few things and caused the federal government to do a few things. So now, I ask you, my congressman, okay, Jim Himes, refuses to answer any questions about anything. I just asked to to debate him through debateattorney.com. I'm sure he won't comply, but there's a list of people challenged through Debate Attorney. Let me get it for you. I have it in my hand. And it's quite interesting. Here's the list. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Johanna Hayes, Joe Courtney, John Larson, Rosa DeLauro, and Jim Himes. Those are the first 6 challenges on debateattorney.com. And there are many invitations going out so that you can use a phone voter digital debate website with interactive TV for future political candidates to debate. So I hope this takes off. There have been 13 people invited. These 13 people have been invited to debate on Debate Attorney. Carla Spalding, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Mike France, Elgin, TJ Elgin, Brian Merlin, Sean Folsey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Willie Montague, Maxine Waters, Robert Hyde from Connecticut, Adam Kinzinger, from Illinois, and Jack Lombardi from Illinois. So we have some America First campaign candidates for Congress and the Senate willing to debate and challenging people to debate on a national digital TV debate tournament website called debateattorney.com. I suggest you guys look at it. Happy Independence Day. It's time to expose our Congressman Jim Himes for the undermining of American interests. Who in their right mind would allow a Russian-owned, Rostec? What does that name and the association with Hunter Biden have to do with Rosemont Seneca and the President of the United States? Why is it Rostec? It's 100% owned by Russians. It's got connections to Iranians and Iraqis, and they're running a container ship industry in the United States approved by Hillary Clinton, solidified by a $550 million payment to the Clinton Foundation. Excuse me? If we aren't looking into this, this is the ultimate treason, okay? This is far more treasonous than what my Senator Chris Murphy has done 5 times. What Jim Himes is doing to America is selling them out for his own personal gain, regardless of the risk. So I ask you, if his intern was stabbed 39 times, do you think that was just a robbery? Or did the kid know too much? I'm at 13 minutes. It's Independence Day. Evil is powerless only if people step up that have courage. And you can't fight this type of corruption with ballots. Oh no. Because that's what H.R. 1 is all about. As I said, those congressmen from Connecticut, Rosa DeLauro, Larson, Himes, Joe Courtney, and Hayes, they are co-sponsors of H.R. 1, okay? H.R. 1 is a bill, okay, to legalize the theft of state rights to election oversight being commandeered by the federal government, by these congresspeople. My congresspeople are the lowest life forms, folks. They want ballot harvesting. They want same-day registration. They want people to be able to go from poll to poll with no ID, vote multiple times, and corrupt our election system. They want 6-to-1 matching, so that if a guy gives $10, the federal government will have to give $60 in matching per contribution. They want to take over the United States, folks, and they're doing it because of Connecticut. Connecticut has, in my opinion, the worst individuals as elected officials. James Comey ran the FBI in Connecticut. Blumenthal took him down to Washington to falsify the Clinton investigation, which had something to do with Uranium One. It had everything to do with Ukraine. Murphy threatened to withdraw all Democratic support for Ukraine if they invested Biden on behalf of Trump. Okay? That's my senator, Chris Murphy. Met with Iran secretively. Now what's going on? It's escalating. 600 rockets shot at Israel just to test how many they can defend against at one time. That was a test, folks. Okay? During Ramadan. I get it. And what's going on now is unprecedented. We are going into, for example, normally when Israel and the PLO fight, it starts low scale and gradually builds. This time they started right away with long-range missiles. Right away. So hold on. How's it going to escalate from here? I'm afraid we have Chris Murphy to blame. Yeah. Look how he handled the Houthis. Okay. Look what's going on with Asian hate. I met a guy from Bear Stearns who's a Korean trader. Okay. He had a Chinese hat on. I said, how much for that hat? He goes, I want this. I bought this in China. I go, okay. So he's from Wilton. I'm from Norwalk. He says, oh yeah, I wouldn't sell this hat for anything. I said, so tell me, what's going on with this Asian hate? Because he's Korean. He says, it's mind-boggling. I said, don't you think since China has 85 concentration camps, okay, filled with Uyghurs, Muslims, and the Falun Gong, where they're doing organ harvesting, that since they're taking the Uyghurs, which are Muslims, putting them in concentration camps, that the Muslims in America are going after our Asians here because of what China is doing to Muslims in China. He goes, that makes sense, Johnny. So I gave him my literature. He's a Democrat. He's certainly voting for me. He's a great guy. We see eye to eye. We're both friends with Kenny Savio. We have a lot of Bear Stearns contacts, mutual. But I didn't want to go this long, but I am just shocked and amazed at the amount of destruction our Connecticut congressmen are doing. We got to vote every single congressman in New England out. Okay? We need to gather. We need to fund these campaign committees, these PACs. We need to support local candidates. And we need to get Jim Himes out before he destroys America. They want to give Russia, okay, Gulftainer, a 50-year lease in Delaware to bring in container ships that possibly have ICBMs in them. And if you think the greatest risk is here, okay, we can't trust the FBI. Comey ran the FBI in Connecticut, okay? Jim Himes has oversight. Jim Himes is the same guy with the transportation connections. He's the same guy with the finance committee connections. He had oversight over OxyContin. He had oversight over Dominion through UBS. He had oversight of a lot of the FBI, NSA, CIA. Now, if the FBI is ruined and Jim Himes has oversight over the Department of Homeland Security, which has container ship oversight, how can you trust a single person in the container ship industry? And not only that, it's connected connected to HFA gas production facilities in America. There are 2 in Philadelphia. There are 12 in Corpus Christi, Texas. They're in Florida. They're in Minnesota. They're in Chicago. The problem here is we have 48 HFA oil technology refineries that are antiques owned by the Carlyle Group, Tesoro Petroleum Stamford, Tosco Petroleum Stamford, the O'Malley Group in Greenwich, Connecticut. Okay, we have 48 oil refineries owned by hedge funds that Jim Himes has oversight of that are self-insured, basically no insurance, folks, and they have $4 trillion in risk each, let alone that we have ICBMs on container trucks driving around America that are owned by Russia. Okay? Have I said enough? I'm at 21 minutes. I thank you. Have a fantastic Independence Day. We've got to keep our independence. We need to remain independent from our Congressman Jim Himes. He's a threat to American prosperity and our livelihoods. Have a great day. Please watch. My channel is taking off, I hope you know. And if the debate tournament takes off, you will have a new form of debates for any congressional candidate. We need that in America. We need to have our own debate system.